Hi everyone, Jake here for FMSCOUT, and in today's video I'm going to be running you guys through 3 of the most common misconceptions in the Football Manager community. Hopefully even the most experienced players will learn something from this video and we can really debunk some of these Football Manager myths that are going around right now. Hi everyone, Jake here, and as mentioned at the start, today we're going to be debunking some of the most common Football Manager misconceptions that you guys might have. Maybe you guys are already aware of some of these, but I reckon across the 3 there's going to be something that even the most experienced player goes, I never thought about it like that. So without further ado, we're going to get into the video, but I just want to ask you guys, if you could be legends, it really does help us if you can hit that like button, make it turn blue. It does so much in supporting the channel. Comment down below your favourite Football Manager misconceptions, and if you didn't already know, so many of you aren't subscribed to the channel. I'll try and put a statistic on the screen right now, but so many of our viewers aren't subscribed, and just if a few of that percentage did hit that subscribe button, it would make a big difference to our subscriber numbers, which is obviously great for us guys. So let's get into our first misconceptions, and today we're going to be using my Wolfsburg save as an example. You can check this save out if you're interested on my own channel linked in the description. Just over 6,000 subscribers on there now, so thank you for getting me towards that goal, and plenty of you who have came over have said you've enjoyed the content, so if you want to, try it out. But let's get into misconception number 1. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is star ratings. Now this is something that I spoke about in a whole video on its own on last year's Football Manager, but I can try and sum it up to as short as possible by saying people who judge the star ratings in Football Manager as gospel aren't really going about things the right way. There's a variety of reasons for that, but you might have noticed in your save it's super hard to get every position a 5-star player, and there's a simple reason for that, and that is that you can't do that. Now there might be the 1 in a million example, but most of the time you really cannot do that in Football Manager, and that is because star ratings are, amongst many other things, very misleading. We'll start with this guy, Rideli Baku, who is one of the top players at our club, and because of that he is represented with a 4.5-star ability rating. Now a lot of players, and you'd be forgiven for believing so, would see that and go, okay, Baku has got the best star rating at the club, he is a 4.5-star player, just like FIFA, that's his overall rating, end of, that's what he is. There are so many factors that influence star rating in Football Manager that make them misleading. First of all, there is a staff member giving you this star rating, and you can change who's doing that. And of course, coaches have their own judging player ability ratings, so the better the coach, the more accurate in theory this star rating should be, but for that reason, your star rating can fluctuate. The star rating in Football Manager is also influenced by form. You might have noticed that sometimes when your player is playing super well, his star rating starts to climb and climb. For example, we have Karim Adeyemi at the club. When we first signed him, this guy went on a scoring spree, and you best believe that he had a 5-star rating in our team, but that's now dropped down to 4 stars, with the potential one day to reach 5 stars. Does that mean that he's a worse player than he was when he originally joined us? No, not at all. It's just the way that things work in real life too. When a player is doing very well, your judgment, your view of that player is heightened. For example, you might see Calvert-Lewin scoring 20 goals in 10 games or whatever it might be for Everton over the next few weeks, and then you go, wow, that's an amazing player. But slowly he'll start to score less and less, and you'll think less of him in terms of how you judge him. That's one simple way to explain how that's working, but there's still a few other factors that are influencing your star rating. For example, Karim Adeyemi, 4-star player, but that is due to the league he's in and the club he is at. If we put Adeyemi in League 2 in the English divisions, he is going to be a 5-star player, and that is because a player's star rating is compared to players in the league, but also players in your own team, and that is why I said earlier that getting a full team of 5-star players will be super hard, if not virtually impossible, unless you literally stuck Manchester City team in League 2 or something like that. But star ratings are judged on other players at the club, so when you have Florian Wirtz here, yes, he's a good player, but the assistant is basically going, he's very good, but he's not as good as Rideli Baku, and that's the reason why you couldn't have everyone at 5 stars, because everyone is always being compared to each other, unless everyone was the exact same rating somehow. Maybe that would be the only way you can get it, but I'm hoping that starts to make sense for you guys, and why you shouldn't just blindly judge star ratings as going, okay, Rideli Baku is our best player and he's going to be our best player, because of course you have to factor in potential, form, your coach's ability rating, players at your club, players in the league as well. So really don't get too bogged down in what a star rating means, and don't get too disheartened if that starts to go down as well. What you should really be using is your attributes and the attributes needed for a certain role. For example, Rideli Baku with the wing-back support option, all of his attributes needed are highlighted, and he looks very good for that role, and that is how I would judge him myself as if he's a good player or not for that position. That doesn't mean you should totally discount star ratings, just think of them as something that they're a general guide, they're not exact, and you shouldn't judge absolutely everything through them. But attributes does lead us on to misconception number 2, so let's start talking about that. For this misconception, I'm going to be looking at hidden attributes, and in particular 2 of them, consistency and big matches. Now, a lot of people would just see Radele Baku having great attributes and would say, awesome, this guy is a great player, but might not factor in if you were going to sign him, whether he was consistent, whether he likes big matches or not. These things, in my opinion, and I made a video on it last year as well, are super important, particularly consistency, because it turned out after a bit of research that what this meant wasn't what many people assumed it would be. For example here, Baku has a consistent performer attribute on his coach report. This is a hidden attribute of consistency between 1 and 20 that you guys can't see. If it was on the lower ends, it would come up as a con in red, and the darker the red, the lower it is, and if it was basically middle ground, you wouldn't see it. But if it's on the higher end, as it looks like Baku's case is, let's say 15, 16, 17s, the darker the green, the more consistent the player. And of course, that's a good thing, but that doesn't mean that he's going to hit a 7.5 average match rate in every game. That is half true, because the real meaning behind consistency will influence how he performs on the pitch, but it's exactly that. What consistency does, and many people don't know this, is that determines how often a player is going to play to these attributes. So a super consistent player who loves big matches in a big match, it's of course a great thing to have, but so many people would assume that when a big match comes around or when he's just super consistent, these attributes are almost enhanced in a way in the game, because now he is super consistent, he's going to be reaching a higher level every single game and just keeping at that really top level. But what consistency actually means is he is reaching these attributes. Now, that might not sound like much, but what it will mean if you're signing someone with low consistency is, let's say they've got 4 out of 20 consistency, what that means is fairly regularly they're not going to be playing to this attribute level. So they might have amazing attributes, but if they've got really low consistency, you can almost minus 1 or 2 off that attribute for how they're going to perform in most matches if they're inconsistent. And if it's a match where the Football Manager algorithm has decided, you know what, he's not going to be consistent this game as he has a very low consistency rating, imagine it as rolling the dice if he's going to be consistent or not, well then he might go into this game and he actually has 12 crossing in the match engine as opposed to 14. You obviously can't visualize that, but that's what can potentially happen. We did find that physical attributes weren't affected too much, as you can imagine, whether you're consistent or not isn't going to really affect how fast you are, but how you perform in terms of your decision making and your technical attributes, it does have a big deal. So one thing I'll always say is, as good as someone's attributes might be, really do pay attention to your coach report with your players and if you're signing a new player, because if I saw consistency as a major con, unless they were like Lionel Messi attributes, I would probably say, you know what, I want to stay clear of him. I'd rather have someone who was, say, 10 current ability less, but was a super consistent player, because then at least you know that he's going to be reaching high levels a lot of the time and play into the attributes that he has on paper. Baku here has great consistency, great big matches. That puts him in great form, which in turn affects his star rating, as discussed before in Misconception 1. And that's why if we look at his history for us, he has been an immense player for the 2 seasons we've had him here at Wolfsburg, and it looks like it's going to continue in this 3rd season too, which if you want to check out, we're just starting that on my channel, so feel free to take a look at that. But that's my misconception number 2. Hopefully this is all making sense. I know this is a bit more abstract as a video in terms of thinking, but hopefully I'm explaining it in a good way. But let's go for a more simple one for misconception number 3. Okay, for the final misconception in today's video, I'm going to be talking about transfer installments and why, for some reason, some people view using transfer installments as almost cheating the game and it's not realistic, whatever it might be. Certainly not the case in my opinion, and I think most people who, if they were involved in real life football, would tell you the majority of deals are probably done in this way. So let's say we wanted to sign Marcus Antonio here. He might have a release clause, so this might not be a great example. Let's say we wanted to pay £20 million for this guy. Some people would go outright, pay 20 million, and that's it. But of course, in Football Manager, we have the option to do installments. So some players might say, you know what, we'll pay 5 million up front, and over the course of 3 installments, we're going to pay £15 million in 5 million chunks. Or they might say, we'll pay £10 million in installments. After 20 goals or 20 appearances, we'll pay XYZ to make it up to that amount. And some people see this as almost cheating and conning the game. I often watch Lujo, and in his Football Manager videos, in his saves, he likes to buy players on what he calls the never never, basically installments. So he'll buy someone for £30 million, pay £10 million up front, and the rest comes over time and if a player does well. So many people in the comments call this cheating or not playing the game in a fair way. But there's a reason that this is in the game, and that is because so many transfer deals are done this way. From what I've read, the Luis Diaz deal that Liverpool have made includes a big instalment incentive, so they're not paying upfront, and another great example of this is the Dele Alli deal from Everton. As far as all sources report, this transfer deal was basically £0. However, over time, depending on what Dele Alli does for the club, Everton will have to pay more and more, and that's going to include a few easy to access instalment fees. For example, let's say you played 10 games, they might have to pay £5 million, and if you got to a super high level, if Dele Alli scored 20 goals in a season, I of course don't know the exact details of what the two clubs have agreed, but maybe he scores 20 goals and that activates a £10 million clause, and this can be beneficial for both teams. Obviously, in Everton's case, they don't have to spend outright in a tough financial situation, and if Dele Alli does then come good, they can at least go, you know what, we're paying for a player who's actually been good for us. And on Tottenham's side, they're probably getting rid of a player who was very hard to shift away in terms of a transfer value, and if he does end up being any kind of success for someone else, they make money out of it. If it was done in this kind of way that we're seeing here, with a big instalment fee, they'll know that their club, at least for the next few months and years, are going to receive big chunks of money every now and then to keep them afloat, to keep them in good financial stead, which is often better for a club than just being given 100 million outright, because then what do you do with that? You're going to want to spend it. But if you do it in an instalment way, it's good for the club over the long term and shows a gradual increase in finances in the club. So hopefully that's all made sense, and why you shouldn't view the transfer installments as cheating. In terms of misconceptions, I think the third one is the one that most people actually understand and know about, whereas 1 and 2, particularly the second misconception, is something that I think so many players need to pick up on more often, because that consistency rating can be the be-all and end-all of a transfer being good or bad. So it's always something to look out for. If you did enjoy this video, if you want to see more like this, do like the video. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm subscribed to the channel if you haven't already. Hope you're all having a great day, and I'll see you next time, guys. Goodbye.